Hey gang, so a quick question for those who might follow this YouTube channel who are premillennial, whether they're dispensational premillennial and kind of believe in the rapture and 7-year tribulation, or they're historic premillennial, they just believe that Jesus is going to come and in a physical way rule from Jerusalem and usher in these 1,000 years of peace and prosperity on earth before the great judgment and before the new heavens and the earth and before the great glory that will come with it. So, and for the rest of us, it's just a bit of a thought experiment. I was reading Irenaeus, his book Against Heretics. Now, Irenaeus, he wrote in the 2nd century. He grew up in like modern day Turkey, Asia Minor, and then was a bishop, a church leader, and a martyr towards the end of the 2nd century in Lyon, France. He brings up an interesting point. Now, Irenaeus, he was a premillennial. I am what they call amillennial. In other words, I don't believe in a literal 1,000 years that Jesus is going to return and have 1,000 years on earth. But he was. He was. There were other Christians in the 2nd century who had other views, but Irenaeus was what we call historic premillennial. And it's this thought, his reasoning, it kind of mirror images mine. And I want to throw it out to my premillennial friends just to get your comments and hear what you think. The way he reasons in his writing, he connects the intermediate state after death along with the millennium. Now, at first, when I was trying to follow his logic there, I didn't really get it because those are usually two issues I'm not used to thinking of connected together. But in Irenaeus's mind, and seemingly in the minds of a lot of eschatology Bible teachers back then, these two things were really connected. And what Irenaeus was doing was that he was arguing against any sort of intermediate state in the presence of Christ. That he's seeming to imply that either we die and we're asleep until the resurrection, until Christ comes back, and then there's this resurrection that takes us into the millennium, or we die and our souls are in some pleasant place in subterranean earth, but not like in the presence of Christ. And so he was arguing that it could not be that when we die that we are in the presence of Christ, because if that were true, then the millennium would be a step backwards. It would be a retrogression. It wouldn't be a progression. It would be a degradation. Like, you're in the presence of Christ and in glory in this heavenly place, and you're here and Christ is here and you're seeing and fully knowing. But then you come back to an earthly resurrection where God's presence is completely manifest in the physical body of Jesus, reigning, ruling in Jerusalem, and you're no longer in his glorious presence and in quite the same way that you were back when you were dead, when your soul was separated from your body and you were in glory. And that's why Irenaeus is writing that therefore this can't be true. It can't be true that therefore when we die we're either our soul is sleeping or we're in some pleasant place in earth just waiting for the resurrection. So that line of argument convinces him not to believe in the intermediate state, but as me, who's someone who believes, as Paul said, talked about to me to depart and to be with Christ. I think there's various places in the New Testament, particularly Philippians, where Paul's talking about, I'm going to go and I'm going to be, when I die, I'm going to be with Christ. Tonight you'll be with me in paradise. And, I believe in being with Christ, but I think his logic is sound. Is it actually an improvement? Is it actually improvement going? Now, I realize that the goal is our bodies. I agree that the goal is the resurrection of our bodies. But in what sense is being in the presence of Christ in this glorious place, though we are disembodied, which isn't a good thing, but we're in the presence of Christ. Whereas in the millennium, it seems Christ is still very much in that physical body, and we could be on the other side of the earth serving him, and the earth might be great and prosperous, and it might be far better than this life right now, but we're not in the glorious presence of Christ in the same way. That has to await a full 1,000 years until the new heavens and the new earth and the new glories that come with that. And who knows what that's going to be like. We all believe that that's going to be the best thing ever. That's just going to be a huge improvement. But again, is Irenaeus right? Do you agree with Irenaeus? Do you think he has a point? Do all you who are premillennial, do you disagree with the fact that when we die, that we're in the presence of Christ? Or if you do think we're in the presence of Christ when we are separated from our bodies, in what way then would an earthly millennial kingdom, again, we're not talking about the new heavens and the new earth, in what way would that be in improvement, other than that we're reunited with our bodies, which again is great. But if we're not in the glorious presence of Christ in the same way we were when we were dead, well, it can be argued whether that's much of an improvement or not. So I agree with Irenaeus's reasoning. I just mirror it and come sort of to the opposite conclusion. That makes sense? Anyway, all you PreMil guys, I'd love to hear from you. See what you think.